can I just take this moment to thank each and every one of you amazing supporters. This channel has grown into an amazing community of story lovers. I could not have done it without you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please be part of this journey and help us reach new heights. When Mr. Jenkins coded right there in front of me, the terror in his eyes as he grasped the rails of his bed will haunt me forever. The cardiac alarm screeched as his vital signs plummeted and doctors rushed in, but the frantic resuscitation attempts could not bring him back. I'll never forget watching his last desperate breaths fade, his lined face still twisted in fear and confusion at his abrupt ending under the harsh hospital lights. In 15 years as an ICU nurse, I've lost patience, but something in witnessing this particular elderly man's panic demise shook me hard. He had only been admitted that morning for minor breathing issues that seemed manageable. Chatting pleasantly about his garden through my intake assessment, he had no indications of imminent decline. But just past midnight, I found him struggling for air, saying he had a vice grip on his chest. Moments later, he was gone, his heart giving out with no warning. In the week following, the mental playback of Mr. Jenkins' death constantly crept into my thoughts, the image of his horrified eyes burning into my own. Sleep eluded me most nights as I rechecked details from that case, trying to understand how he slipped away so fast. But the doctor's notes confirmed no prior cardiac condition. It made little sense. My restless fixation soon evaded work itself. Passing down a long fourth-floor hallway, I found my gaze invariably drawn to glimpse inside room 422 through the nursing station windows. I shrugged it off as just a familiar visual landmark my brain now assigned to the traumatic end I witnessed there. Late one night, a few weeks later, I left the nurse's station to stretch my tired legs and get the blood flowing. As I aimlessly wandered the dead quiet corridor, lost in thought, I came up on room 422 again. The door stood closed, bed empty and dark within, or so I believed, until movement in my periphery made me pause mid-step. I froze, peering into the shadowed room. I could have sworn I saw the shape of a patient shuffle across the slit of light inside, as if they had pulled back the privacy curtain circling the bed. I definitely spotted a silhouette lumber slowly between the bed rails and the bathroom door, like an elderly person dependent on walkers or canes. Unease trickled down my neck. That certainly looked like a person wandering inside room 422. But of course, no patient had been assigned to this room since Mr. Jenkins died. My overtired brain must be playing games, I told myself. Apprehension rising, I slid my key card through the lockbox and cracked open the heavy door. I swept the flashlight beam over every inch of floor space. The neatly made vacant bed stood untouched, corners tightly tucked. Various machines for monitoring vitals all powered down and vacant. No signs of use or human presence besides myself. Of course, no one here anymore, I chided my weary mind. But then a new detail my searching light revealed sent prickles up my arms. The strong, lingering scent of menthol chest rub. That pungent ointment Mr. Jenkins always slathered on himself, the old-fashioned remedy we nurses gently teased him about. Though gone for 2 weeks now, the smell of his sickly sweet balm still hung thick in this empty room. I was frightened as the implications dawned on me. If this lingering odor came from his absent body somehow, had my eyes indeed glimpsed his lingering spirit just now? Surely not possible. My exhausted brain clearly conjured shadows that cannot exist here anymore. I backed slowly from the dark void that was 422, more unnerved than I allowed myself to acknowledge in that moment. But I could not deny this room already seemed to hold me under some strange spell. Shaken, I finished my shift unnerved by exhausted eyes clearly playing tricks, but what I wrote off as one sleep-deprived hallucination slowly multiplied over the next weeks. Passing room 422, my neck prickled as if watching me from inside. Soft strains of big band music he favored seemed to follow me at the nurse's station late at night, and multiple times I nearly dropped patient binders after spotting Mr. Jenkins out of the corner of my eye hovering solemnly beside his former room. But each time I spun around to look, only empty space remained. My rational brain fought acknowledging when I gradually came to accept the ghost of Mr. Jenkins occupied our floor, appearing randomly to me alone. Why he seemed bound to that room and intent on connecting only with me remained a mystery. A year later, I transferred off that unit, unable to withstand the intermittent manifestations escalating from fleeting to frightful. A crashing code card that slammed rolling across the hall toward me before stopping abruptly inches away and righting itself mysteriously. Supply cabinets shaken violently as I walked past. But worst of all, the touch, like icy skeletal fingers probing gently at the tender inside of my wrist while sitting doing late-night charting alone. My compassion for that frightened elderly man compelled me to silently accept his spectral presence at first. But the encounters worsened, breaching polite ghost protocols. My supervisors skeptically dismissed the stories. Therapists suggested anxiety and grief counseling when I begged for help making sense of it all. In my soul, however, I know Gerard Jenkins reached out for a reason as he expired that midnight. Perhaps I was the last one promising him comfort in those final terrifying moments of forced crossing. I wonder still about souls stranded in death by pain and confusion, searching for those anchors from life who last held their gaze. But I cannot allow my living breath to chain me permanently to that spectral ground any longer. Enough energy remains bound up in that old hospital room already, its essence too entwined with mine in ways I no longer need to understand or justify. The hauntings persist among those fluorescent halls, but I persist now in realms of the living, free from the grip it once held me in so tight. Working the graveyard shift as a security guard at the Royal London Hospital, I'm used to the creepy atmospherics that emerge once visiting hours end and the halls go dim and quiet. But nothing sends a deeper chill down my spine than making rounds past that one ominous door near the central elevators, stenciled in bold letters, morgue. Most nights I hurry past on my scheduled walks, avoiding more than a quick glance at the solid gray door sealing the downstairs room where newly dead bodies await transport. Something about picturing the lifeless forms lying below my feet, the very life essence still dissipating from their cooling flesh as I stride obliviously overhead. It stirred a primal discomfort no amount of reasoning could shake. But one 3 a.m. round had me slowing my brisk footsteps. A faint yet distinct metallic bang echoed from the end of the empty hall where that foreboding entrance stood. I paused, peering into shadows trying to make sense of such a heavy, solid noise arising from a room typically still and silent as death itself. The knees stirring, I used my master key to unlock the morgue suite, hitting switches to flood the stark white halls with light. My pounding heart sounded thunderous in the subterranean quiet as I crept toward the bay of drawers lining the back wall, the final resting spots for bodies before rides to the funeral home. Was it possible some unstable drawer had come loose on its tracks, crashing open forcefully? I crept along slowly, shining my flashlight into each refrigerated chamber through the small viewing windows. The heavy steel boxes were all latched tight, bodies shrouded neatly under crisp sheets, just as I always studiously avoided glimpsing on rare occasions I had reason to enter this place. About to chalk it up to overtired auditory hallucinations in such an inherently morose space, I wheeled suddenly at the distinct sound of shuffling footsteps behind me. My flashlight beam sliced through the brightly lit yet empty room. Of course, no one else should possibly be down here. Morticians and transport drivers never arrived until daylight hours when administration offices were staffed. Unease growing, I gave the place a final sweeping inspection trying to rationalize the noises, until a new sound whispered suddenly right at my ear, an unintelligible muttering, guttural and intense. I cried out, stumbling back, my flashlight clattering sharply to the polished floor, and spinning under metal tables as I fled blindly through the maze of gurneys and equipment. I didn't slow my panicked pace until safely sealing that leading door upstairs behind me in the relative comfort of the night floor nurse's station. Through choked gasps, I relayed the bizarre occurrence to a pair of startled nurses who urged me to report the incident immediately. In daylight rationality, creepy morgue happenings could be blamed on exhausted senses and overactive imagination about things that go bump in the night. But seeing those nurses indulge nervous glances toward that closed stairwell reinforced this went beyond tricks of tired mind. In the unsettling week that followed, 3 bodies from entirely different cases came through missing the same oddly specific organs after transport from our hospital morgue to funeral homes. The baffled coroner could find no reasonable medical or procedural explanation for 2 livers and 1 heart somehow absent from unrelated corpses under close containment. My spine prickled considering similarities too unnatural to ignore. Bodies robbed inexplicably of organs disappearing post-mortem, while our morgue hosted incidents beyond understanding, coming barely a week after that gruesome whisper still echoing hauntingly in memory. As a guarded presence trusted throughout the hospital, I couldn't share flimsy theories about ghoulish organ thieves stalking the lower depths at night. But my internal security protocols mandated further attempts investigating disturbances in the name of safety. So the next week, when 3 a.m. rolled around without a sound down below, I descended repressing relentless dread. My intention was conducting an informed inspection, now better prepared if anything seemed amiss. But the varied air exiting the elevator whose such profound wrongness, I halted frozen gazing into that open morgue suite. The space appeared unchanged except around a certain body drawer I stood too far back to read the ID tag number of. Hovered in amorphous density, chillingly unlike floating dust particles. Frozen in the open chamber doorway, all ability to scream or even breathe failed when that malevolent entity gradually formed into a figure whose eyes burned suddenly into mine, bright and knowing. It held my panicked stare for eternity before dissolving abruptly into the drawer and pulling it closed with a reverberating slam that finally loosened my petrified limbs. I pelted upstairs, fueled by adrenaline and desperation no living nightmare could equal. This was no weary hallucination or air pressure mishap. Something hideous walked undiscovered in those sterile halls after dark, assuming only the dead occupied that lower realm. Unleashing this truth came at pure visceral cost. That stare-meeting mind carried secrets no mortal was meant to ever comprehend or battle alone in the night. Now as I rush past that damned doorway each round with breath held tight, all cells in my being recoil as if a psychic web enshrouds the entire floor, warning me to respect the boundaries between surface world and deeper voids not ours to disturb. For once that seal cracks fully open, no earthly security measures or prayer itself may block freed horrors from feasting above. Assigned to the orthopedic unit, I initially rolled my eyes at murmurs amongst staff regarding one particular room, 315, and its alleged paranormal resident. Having worked this busy hospital floor for nearly a decade myself, I chalked up stories of a ghost nurse appearing to patients overnight to simple bored minds craving drama. Surely just shadows from hallway activity triggering overactive imaginations already heightened by stress of hospital stays. Yet when I had to float to our sister oncology unit one night, I felt unsettled to discover room 315 existed over there too, and so did the whispers. In hushed voices, nurses described a phenomenon eerily similar to orthopedic claims. Tales of a mysteriously outdated nurse figure appearing around 3 a.m. inside both identical room numbers. Patients awakened and alarmed this silent specter oddly immune to all questioning or demands to leave. One elderly cancer patient even insisted this phantom nurse in antiquated uniform had hovered ominously over her bed, studying the IV pumps. She awoke feeling weak and drained, seemingly from more than her illness. After that incident, the unit manager half-jokingly added ghost checks to overnight rounds for room 315. But bed after bed, similar stories surfaced from patients treated in that same space. I shook off prickly feelings hearing identical accounts from separate units regarding the vintage-clad nurse drifting unseen through hospital corridors to materialize inside room 315 before dawn. Pure coincidence, my logic argued, but niggling doubts plagued me whenever I passed an occupied 315 bed, glimpsing uneasy occupants peering around cautiously come night shift. Then one otherwise slow-weaving metallic crashing rang out from the orthopedic end. I rushed toward ominous sounds of violent banging echoing down the hall that brought others running too. Skidding breathless around the corner, we burst through the door of room 315 just as one last tremendous boom rang out from inside the small bathroom. Emerging cautiously, we found an elderly patient crumpled on the ceramic tile, grab bars ripped violently from walls now smashed to flinders across the floor. Desperate gasps wheezed from his battered body as we urgently stabilized catastrophic injuries clearly contradicting his initial recovery timeline. In the chaos, we managed to extract only frantic babbling about a dark figure who had emerged from the walls themselves while he sat vulnerable on the toilet. In the following weeks, 2 more patients experienced abrupt, unexplained health declines after reporting sightings of this silent, reproachful nurse lingering in room 315 deep in the night. Nervous gossip spread, and soon no one wanted to occupy those beds, even if it meant overcrowding elsewhere. I myself erased all doubt during inventory checks 1:03 a.m. when a cold shape materialized suddenly in my periphery by the glittering IV poles. Spinning to confront what couldn't be, indistinct features faded back into nothing by the vital sign monitor, leaving only an expanse of empty floor in front of 315. But not before my shocked senses registered the cloying smell. Either. The antiquated anesthetic phased out long before my years here due to flammability and toxicity. Yet its phantom trace remained, swirling through room 315 along with muted glimpses of a visitor not of this earthly plane. Who she was or why she seemed compelled to keep vigil only at certain early hours inside identical numbered rooms, regardless of unit, remained unfathomable. Some morbidly joked about a time-trapped nurse who died in room 315 ages ago, still making her rounds, not realizing she now exists only in spectral form. But her essence carried malice more darkly ominous than quaint hauntings of lore. Unable to deny the damage she inflicted on unsuspecting patients once midnight struck 315, I helped authorize priests brought in for blessings concealed as maintenance visits. But phenomena continued escalating as years passed from fleeting to flagrant, crashes and banging erupting frequently around 3 a.m. inside despite rooms sitting empty. Mysterious black molds blooming intensely on ceiling tiles and inside cabinets until teams in hazmat gear came scrambling. And worst of all, sudden, unexplained codes crackling urgently over the speakers for seemingly stable occupants of beds in the cursed room 315. My compassion burned for those victims who unknowingly put their recovery and very lives at risk by admit orders assigning them to the deadly spaces bearing those 3 fateful digits. But having witnessed evil unlike any earthly diseases take hold in ways no medicine can combat, now I too hurried past both wings foreboding 315, not daring to gaze within even as strange rhythmic noises echoed dangerously from behind closed doors, as day nurses began arriving. For I have stood frozen in those rooms while cries for help resonated straight through my soul at the sight of that entity and her swirling malevolence. No living being deserves confinement at the whims of such darkness, not just to avoid census issues or insurance mandates. Let 315 remain quarantined for whatever haunts reside there alone until light of day spills in to offer fleeting safety once more. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.